Hello everyone and welcome to another special edition of Health 360. I am Solomon Ededo.
And I'm Blessing Oduniyi. Today we'll be discussing a very important topic termed the silent struggle. But I'm sure you're wondering what that silent struggle is. It is known as post-traumatic stress disorder, often called PTSD.
The first question I feel we should answer is, what is PTSD? PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is actually a form of mental disorder that occurs after experiencing a traumatic event. It usually affects most veterans due to their nature of work, but then it affects other people too who have experienced some form of extreme conditions, extreme events that has caused them to have some symptoms like fear, makes them to be hyper alert to certain
Situations
around them. So it's not really a one-time thing. It's actually something that touches everyone.
That keeps
like
happening. So one interesting thing for me about PTSD is that I've often heard so-called amazing Gen Z say that you just say one small thing happened, they just tell you PTSD. That one happened, PTSD, and you're wondering exactly, is it that there is a misuse of the word, or what exactly is happening? But in this episode, we'll be delving into actually what PTSD is and how we can prevent or avoid PTSD. But coming to think about it also, living with PTSD can be incredibly terrible. Imagine an individual having to battle nightmares, flashbacks, anxiety when the individual experiences a similar situation. And it can also be caused by, say, for example, an individual had experienced a road accident before and survived the accident. Any small trigger, say, for example, the person is traveling, any small trigger on the way.
Maybe an ordinary horn.
It just makes the person really anxious, and you're wondering, calm down, but really the person is experiencing PTSD.
Okay, one thing we need to also look at is depression, which is very close related to PTSD, and one of the major aftermaths of PTSD. And a question is, what is depression? Depression is also a mental disorder, which often leads to a change in mood. Now, like mood swing and every other thing we feel on a day-to-day basis, depression is actually long-term. And it makes one to feel less of who they are. They sometimes feel not willing to be a part of every other thing they would have been a part of on a normal day. And and it also results to suicide, which is also a major a leading cause of death according to data from the WHO. It's actually the fourth leading cause of deaths.
Well, I was even going to say, if you've been following, of course you should be following the news back to back these days, and you would see that there are cases of depression, there are cases of suicide, and we begin to wonder that what exactly is happening. There was a case of a particular manager or CEO committing suicide, and it really raised alarms. But this thing did not just happen in a day. It's something that must have built up, something that different factors must have contributed to it. And thankfully, in a very beautiful time as this, where the economy is really smiling in quotes, everybody's just going through a lot, and this one happens, the person says PTSD, but really it might not even be PTSD, it might just be the person's undergoing depression due to financial instability and all. So one thing we are doing on this episode is to raise awareness about PTSD. PTSD is not something that is totally out of the moon or out of the blues. It's something that individuals around us, or we might even be the ones that might go through it. But how then can we break through this cycle of PTSD? You would have seen that individuals that are going through PTSD, sometimes they act weirdly. And you begin to wonder that why are you acting so. Sometimes they overreact, and that's not because they want to, but because of what they've been through. Imagine someone losing a loved one. And anything, let's say person around just falls sick, person like, no, the person should not die, and it's just PTSD from what they've gone through. So one way that they can break through from the cycle of PTSD is by seeking medical help. So they are therapists, they are psychologists, they're professional, they're very, very professional. They will attend to this in a very, very professional manner in helping the individual gain balance and stability by seeking medical help. And that's one way they can also gain cognitive behavioral therapy to help them become better people.
Starting from this treatment aspect that you mentioned, is actually called psychotherapist, and is carried out by a trained individual, can be a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and it's just a talk therapy, but not the regular half-hour you did talk. You know, it's actually deeper, and it focuses on not just the people, also help people around them to treat better. And one mistake people can make is to think that they cannot be depressed or they cannot experience PTSD. No one is immune. No one is immune. Though currently under study, people still wonder why some people go through some events and they fall into PTSD, while others go through the same events and they come out stronger. But pending when they will settle that, it is important to know that no one is immune.
The things that individuals react to situations differently.
Yeah.
So because you have shock absorbers that actually absorb a particular situation that happens, doesn't mean I have that level of shock absorber. So individuals are different. So you need to actually understand yourself. And another symptom I've noticed or observed closely from individuals that possess PTSD is that they tend to withdraw from every other person. They just want to withdraw. They want to avoid
alone.
They want to avoid anything that seems close to what exactly has happened. Say for example, loss of a loved one or broken relationships. So there are many things that causes PTSD. Is relative to individuals. They don't want to see that thing around. So one thing they can do is ensure that they recognize the triggers, or ensure that they recognize the source of that PTSD and try to intentionally get acclimatized to it so that they are able to handle the situations better. They can also try to intentionally build a network.
Yeah.
So we all know that people are our greatest assets. Ensure that you have communities, because in this present life, you cannot even afford to do life alone. Based on everything that is happening, ensure that you stay plugged to a particular community where you can get support, you can get help, you can get resources that will help you scale better and become a better version of yourself, even mentally.
So why data shows that this PTSD affects more women than men, it is actually important to know that irrespective of whether you are a woman
the
or
gender,
a man, even children sometimes can experience it. So, and one thing we need to ensure that we do constantly is to make sure that we break the stigma, we create awareness, we let people know, and that's why we are here also. We let people know that this thing is there and it affects people, and there are ways to
break free from it. And yes, and I believe we've even mentioned some of the practical tips before. Some other practical tips are exercise, building a routine, and intentionally renewing your mind. So meditation would actually help to break free from PTSD. We hope you've been able to learn a great deal from today's episode of L360.